Sure. Hi, this is Lola Laracy. This is Craft Beer Nation, our Monday night show, Girls Pint In. I am here with my wonderful friend Jamie Driscoll, who is becoming my beer buddy. We're going to do all kinds of stuff together, and I'm excited. And unfortunately, Ashley couldn't join us. She's not feeling too well tonight. Victoria couldn't join us, but that's okay because we've got plenty to talk about. Our topic tonight, we're going to talk about our experiences as women in the beer world. Those times where we go in and we're just kind of looked at like, what are you doing here? Who are you? Or, those times when we go in and it doesn't matter. We're just treated like, one of the guys or girls or whatever. And we've all come up against both scenarios, some more than other. And I'm going to let Jamie go ahead and talk about your experiences, talk about times when you think you've turned it around, where maybe you, kind of captured some person's attention and maybe turned their, opinion around or something.
Well, this is something that, being a lady and a beer drinker, it's kind of near and dear to both of our hearts, I think. Pretty much anybody in that likes to go out and have a good time, you don't want to show up and be judged or prejudged just because you show up with boobs or whatever. What I've realized, and I actually tested this today, I went out to a place I'd never been before to buy fruit-based beer.
Okay.
Something that shouldn't be, but is traditionally considered to be more feminine. And I wanted to see how I was treated at more of a hipstery kind of craft beer joint. There's a new beer place in our neighborhood called Beer 30. So I walked in, I grabbed a couple of fruit beers because I wanted to drink some fruit beer today. Sam Smith raspberry. Very delicious.
Nice. I like that.
Who doesn't love Sam Smith? So good.
They're good.
So I picked up a couple of things and I put them on the bar, and instead of asking him for the one thing I couldn't find that I knew they had, I asked him for something totally non-fruit beer related that was kind of weird. I asked him for if he had any cucumber saison, and I said I had just tried a Cigar City one that I loved, and he was like, oh, I wish we had it, we don't. And all of a sudden I realized that's my way of preempting. No matter what I order or buy, I always try to sneak something in that somebody that they're going to be like, oh, she knows what she's talking about, she's not just a fruit beer drinker.
That's good.
Is it? Because part of me is I should be able to just buy fruit beer.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to prove yourself. That's a big thing. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to subvert their expectations. They shouldn't have expectations. They're douchebags.
Well, it's not that they're douchebags. It's that I assume them to be douchebags.
That's true. They're gonna have that.
This guy was perfectly nice, and part of it is when I was younger, I had a lot of bad experiences with ordering wine with people that looked down on me because they didn't think I knew what I was drinking or ordering, and they're like, "Are you sure you don't want something sweeter, honey?" That kind of experience, and so I've learned to preempt it, and I don't think it's fair. And I did another thing. One of the beers I bought is from one of my favorite breweries. It's, do you know Unibrew?
Oh, I love Unibrew.
Me too. But so check this out, and I'm actually going to share my screen here for a second because I've got a Unibrew-based thing to show you. So one of the fruit beers I bought, screen share, entire screen
one, I think.
Yep, I got it right here. So do you see my Unibrew screen?
Yes.
Okay, so Unibrew has tons and tons of different kinds of beers, and the one that I bought that's a fruit beer is called Ephemer. Ephemer is an apple-based beer. It's brewed with apple. If you look here, this is their website. You'll notice that under flavor, it's delicate balance of fruit and spice, some sweetness, some tartness. They specifically mention the kind of fruit, and you notice the picture.
Yeah.
Very feminine. It's a lady fairy, and there's some apples, so you can tell by the picture, and this is the picture on the beer, that this is sort of an apple-flavored beer. Now, all of their beers are slightly sweet, and they all have a little fruit component, but let me show you some of their other main beers, their most popular beers as far as I'm aware. Don de Dieu means gift of God.
Okay.
Little manly, look at this. You got some fighters
nice.
on a fighter ship. Yeah. They talk about slightly fruity, but they don't talk about fruit flavor. They mention
Okay.
malty, nutty, yeasty. They talk unfiltered sake. No mention of the kind of fruit or anything like that. And this is a kind of manly thing. Now, the next one, la fin du monde. In French, it means the end of the world. I do too. When it comes to flavor, they mention that it has some fruit, but they don't mention a fruit flavor name at all.
Right. They don't go into detail about the fruit.
No, and I would actually say, having had them, this is the sweeter of the two between this and ephemer. We have maudite, even sweeter than la fin du monde. Maudite means cursed or damned. And it talks about maltiness and spiciness, doesn't mention that actual fruit forwardness. And then 3 pistils or 12 pistils, again, I do too. It's really great. Mentions fruit, mentions cocoa, but no specific kind of fruit. So the one that's actually brewed with a fruit, I'm just going to go back to this. So look at this. It's dark. Look at that. You know, we've got, you know, the damned on a boat. And then we have a lady fairy with some fruit on it.
And do you notice her colors are brighter too?
Yeah, her colors are brighter. It's much fruit forward. And so then I was like, I wonder if this is like just me. You know, I picked Unibrew just because I happened to. And then I Googled fruit beer. The first 2 reviews of fruit beer were men reviewing fruit beer, and one of them said, "You're gonna take away my man card, but." And the other one said, "I know it's not supposed to be manly, but." And I was like, so wait. Somehow the fact that fruit exists as a component means it's no longer like accessible to any but one sex. It's ridiculous.
Are they
and it makes
saying
me
they
really
don't eat
mad.
fruit?
Right? How is it that fruit in beer makes beer somehow like inaccessible to men or something that men shouldn't have?
Or something they should be ashamed of. That's what I heard. I heard that they're ashamed to like it because they're ashamed to be associated with something girly. So that's kind of insulting in 2 ways. It's insulting because they're ashamed to be associated with the girl thing, and it's insulting because they're saying it's a girl thing. Hey, Kristen, how are you doing?
Hi, Kristen.
Sorry, I've been having technical difficulties.
Okay, I hope you can stay with us because this topic idea was your idea.
I know. It's why I've been desperately trying to join.
Kristen,
Anyway.
this is my friend Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Nice tiara.
Thank you. I figured for the discussion of ladies and beer, you know, tiara and fur would be the way.
I like it.
Thanks.
I think that's good. Well, Kristen, we're going to get back to Jamie, of course, because Jamie has a lot of wonderful things to say. But Kristen, why don't you go ahead and give us some ideas on the topic?
Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry. You want me to set it up a little bit more? You're like, I just got here.
I know, I just got here. I just opened my beer. Jamie, why don't you finish and I'll get left discombobulated and find a glass and stuff.
That's fine,
Cool.
no problem.
Okay, hold on.
All right. So while Kristen gets a glass, the last thing I really have to say is that, you know, these days, now that I'm a little bit older, and now that I have we talked about the preempting, where I show someone that I have the chops so that I don't have to worry about it. Now that I know how to do that, I mean, pretty much all the places I go, they know that I know what I'm talking about. They can give me great recommendations, and I don't feel like I'm being judged because I'm a lady. But I think the issue is that I have to do that at all, and that again, let me just show this delicious, delicious beer, which, by the way, these guys, all of their beer pretty much looks the same, no matter what it's made of or with.
Yeah.
Unlike Unibrew, who clearly, like, there is a difference between...
They're targeting.
They're targeting, and I love their beer. I'm not going to stop drinking it. But, I mean, even actually with the names, ephemer means something ephemeral or not lasting.
Not earthly.
Well, really, like, not lasting. Something that's, like, flash in the pan and done. And all of the other ones mean gift of God, end of the world, cursed, 3 guns.
Very heavy, weighty ideas.
Yeah, and this one's like, ha ha. And I would argue.
free. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even it's a picture of a little floaty fairy on a little swing, and not that I don't love, swings and fruit
And
beer.
fairies are cool, yeah.
Yeah, fairies are totally awesome, but I guarantee you there are dudes who don't drink that beer purely because they think it's girly. And to me, being treated like you don't know what you're talking about because you identify as a lady and they say, oh, you can't partake in this is not something that I'm currently experiencing, and I think that's as much a testament to the people that I'm around and the places I go as it is to my preemptiveness. The issue really is that my guy friends can't order an Ephemere or won't order an Ephemere.
But that's them though. I mean, maybe they need to learn to stop having that, that association with it. Maybe they need to be like, I like Ephemere, I like fairies. I'm going to drink it.
Well, but it shouldn't even be marketed toward women.
I know. And I think
it's like Legos having all pink sets.
It's silly. And I think that's Unibrew's mistake. I think they're marketing themselves out of selling that beer because all they're doing is annoying women like us who don't like to be pandered to. Yeah. And you're alienating men who don't want to be associated with fluffy beer.
Right. And I don't have it up. A friend of mine actually pointed out, like, I really did some homework on this. I love this topic.
I'm glad.
A friend of mine pointed out that she and her husband drink Angry Orchard. And if you look at the marketing for that, it's very neutral. It's got a lot of trees and apples. I've seen dudes and chicks drinking it. I don't see that there's any issues. Strongbow cider is another one that's, not marketed either way, and it's got a universal acceptance, and it's not considered for ladies. So I think that there are a lot of places that are going away from that, but I think the problem is there aren't enough going away from that.
Yeah. One of my issues is beer labels with sexy women on them.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And there's my local bottle shop is awesome. It's run by a man and a woman, and they're very progressive. And to sort of mock the number of beer labels that have scantily clad busty women on them, they put together themed 6-packs, like just grab and go. And they were going to do a misogyny pack of only ones that had, women on the...
Awesome.
I know, and I was like, that's actually kind of awesome to call people out on their bad label work, because I admit it, like, I sort of, I will order something called, say, a tramp stamp in a bar because it's kind of funny, but then if I look at the bottle and I see it in the shop and it, actually has label artwork on it and is not a keg, I'm like, I kind of want to rethink this beer because I'm not sure the brewers want me drinking it, and if they want to lose me as a customer, then, that's up to them.
Well, plus it's kind of gross, too. I mean, drinking something like that, I mean, I don't want to be associated with that kind of feeling, Yeah. Is that Clown Shoes? I remember that.
It is.
Yeah, and I love Clown Shoes. I adore Clown Shoes, but some of their labels do kind of make me go, really? That's kind of gross.
Yeah. And the thing is that I probably wouldn't feel so bad about it if, for every Victoria beer, there was a Victor beer. And, I know that there is a specific brewery that does that. But right next to the, scantily clad women, where's my scantily clad dude standing on a, beer bottle is trying to get me to buy it?
I just looked up tramp stamp. It's gross.
It is gross.
Like,
I don't think we got that one. Huh.
And I'm all for tasteful nudity. Like, I don't mind, ladies who are in a buxom and sexy or whatever. I'm fine with that. And like you said, having the opportunity to have both is inclusive, and that's a good thing. But really, like, you shouldn't need, some girl's naked back in, button jeans to sell a beer.
There's no reason.
She's wearing pants.
This beer is delicious.
But, yeah.
Well, and I know... Oh, yeah, what are you drinking?
I want to know what Kristen's drinking.
Kristen, what are you drinking?
This is the only single-serving cold beer that I had in my refrigerator.
Okay.
Everything else were bombers, and I said it's kind of late on a school night. So
Yeah.
I am drinking a very ungirly beer because I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but I did a terrible pour.
I'm bad at pours.
No, and this one I've had, a bunch of times, and I don't know what's wrong with it, but this is a St. George Brewing Company porter out of Hampton, Virginia, and chicks don't like dark beer, so
I love porters.
I do too.
So does Ashley. Ashley loves stouts, so.
Yeah. So
porters.
Yeah, I admit there is a local brewery that made a beer called Pink, and it is a tart something berry ale, and I feel like when they first released it, it was February, and it was a fundraiser for breast cancer. And so, like, for that, I get it that, you're naming it after the color you're raising money for, but I don't know. They still have it, and they still sell it, and I'm like, yeah, but now it's kind of disconnected from that whole fundraising thing, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah. Now it just looks like pink beer. Beer.
It's actually called Pink.
That's a bit much. I mean, just like I don't like when I like wines, I get deep red wines. I don't like the white sweet wines. I just don't.
Yeah.
I like rich earthy wines.
And I have a point about that too. Like lately, rosés are being made from like really serious, beefy red grapes. Yeah,
I like that.
Like really delicious, very well made, and you can get some French ones that are super mineral, very dry, and really great. And you can get some American-made ones that will blow your mind with the richness, but still refreshing because it's sort of like a hodgepodge. But because pink wine is often considered to be, a less than
Lightweight
because of what's in.
Yeah.
Well, and because it's something that girls like, and something that it tends to be a lower taste level, people tend to kind of make it less than too, and bugs me.
And also, when you think about it, it's like saying, oh well, we can't handle the real stuff. We have to have diluted light beer, light wine.
Right.
I know. I'm like, I'll drink all of y'all. Well, maybe not y'all, but I'll drink some people under the table. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm still sitting at the bar and demanding another one.
Wow, I am so asleep at 4 a.m. and it has nothing to do with how much I have or haven't had to drink. It's just that it's 4 o'clock in the morning and it was bedtime so many hours ago.
I know. Yeah.
So, Jamie, when I first got in, you were talking about preemptive needs to sort of establish your beer knowledge and your beer chops in establishments. And as you were talking, I was really, because I was thinking about it and thinking, I don't remember a time recently when I've had a problem in a bar, with someone, or in a bottle shop with someone being kind of a jerk to me, but I've sort of started the conversation by saying, I like funky beers, I like dark beers, I like big beers. What do you have that I want? And I feel like I sort of have to go in, and maybe one of these days I should walk in and just sort of be like, what do you recommend? And see what they steer me to.
That's kind of the experiment you did, Jamie.
Well, it isn't, because I was just going to go and buy fruit beer, but as I was putting the fruit beer on the table, I automatically just asked him for something that I knew would say, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with what I was ordering. And I realized that that's how I establish my I know what I'm talking about. And then I feel like I can order whatever I want as long as I can start that conversation. But that's
right.
And well, what I wonder is, because it's been a long time, did I learn to do it because I was female or because I was young, or both? And I don't know that answer, but I'm betting for some people it did have to do with my gender as well as my age. And now it doesn't, because, I mean, most of the places I go now, I just walk in and they know me. Like, I don't go to new places very often, and, like, all the bartenders know who I am now, for better or worse. They're like, oh, you've got to try this. Like, there are a couple of restaurants I go to where I'll get to try a bunch of different great wines and great beers and sometimes great liquors because they respect my opinion. But at a new place, like today, I preempted, and that was not something I thought about doing. It's something that I'm used to doing, and I'm definitely sure that that's something I've taught myself how to do because I'm afraid somebody's going to judge me if I don't.
It's like a defense mechanism. It's
Yeah.
like you put up your hands and say, "Don't give me that girly crap."
Yeah.
I like real beer.
It's definitely that, but it's before I give them the opportunity to not give me that girly crap.
Well, that happens with any defense mechanism, though. I think that's the problem with a lot of people. You learn defense mechanisms, so you throw them up before you even realize who you're talking to. I think that's a big problem people have in general.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So on the flip side of the coin, do you think that the establishment of certain beers and certain beer styles as girly keeps men from drinking them? I mean, it sounds like that was the direction people were headed. Is it sort of the inverse side of the same coin that, you know, guys are not getting a full beer experience because maybe they like fruity beers and they can't drink them for fear of mocking?
Definitely. In fact, like one of the reviews on this guy was coming out as loving fruit beer, and the first line said, "You're gonna take away my man card, but I really like some fruit beer." And it was like, what, like, and I think Lola said, "What, you don't eat fruit?" Like,
I know.
All right, my battery's about to die, so I'm gonna switch power outlets and hope I don't totally lose you.
Okay.
Okay, I have to sprint to where my other charger is.
But it's definitely that reverse gender issue, where, and some men are not worried about this. It's not an issue for them, but it's. I mean, I would say that ordering a fruit beer for some guys is tantamount to ordering, you know, a pina colada or a strawberry daiquiri.
They're worried about their image. Yeah, it's about their image and not about what they want.
Yeah, well, and you know, it goes down to wearing, you know, shirts that are pink or salmon or whatever. It's, I think there's a male gender identity that is, I mean, it gets to a ridiculous point. Like, do you not eat things with, you know, strawberry jam on them either? Because that's kind of pink.
That's fruit.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have popsicles?
No, popsicles are unduly.
I love popsicles. I eat popsicles.
You're a girl.
Dad.
I guess it's okay. You know, well, we better tell Dole then. They need to market just to women because guys don't eat. I guess kids maybe do.
Oh, their popsicles are good.
I love them. I love the real fruit popsicles.
Me too. We need to not talk about popsicles, people.
I know, because I don't have any here, although I have ice cream. But anyways.
Oh, don't even.
I know. So, yeah, we're kind of falling into the stereotype. We're talking about ice cream now.
I did not participate in the ice cream conversation.
Okay. I love ice cream. But my boyfriend loves ice cream, too.
A scoop in my beer probably wouldn't be so bad.
That would be so awesome. I've had that before.
I went to a place locally where they have root beer floats, and they made me a beer float instead with this really, really delicious creme brulee porter. And
so good.
Oh my, it was a beer float, and it was probably the best dessert I've ever had.
That sounds awesome.
It was really awesome.
I would just sit there and lick my lips and be like, I love you. Give me the beer. Was that Southern Tier? Huh? What did you say, Kristen?
Oh, I was going to say, there are a bunch of establishments around town where you actually can go into the restaurants and buy a beer float, and it's, you know, some draft beer and ice cream, or you know, beer-based reduction sauces on top of ice cream or something. So there are a bunch of beer-based desserts around town, and they, you know, they're equal opportunity. If you love dessert, you will love these desserts.
I love my dessert with a little kick. I love my beer with a little dessert.
See, and I'm not a big dessert fan normally,
okay.
But periodically I just want a little bit of sweet. And something like that sounds delicious. Kristen, what magical part of the land do you live in?
I live in Philadelphia, which is just a great beer drinking town, and yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's that you know, I'm preempting everybody at bars and restaurants, or if it's just that, like you, I'm going to a lot of places where I know people and they just know better than to try to give me crappy beer. or if it's, you know, some fantastic exception to beer culture that it's just equal opportunity. I don't know. But there's lots of beer here. There's lots of beer drinking here.
Well, and it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity with beer that we don't have here, but it's also, I found that things kind of flow from New York all the way down, so eventually that trend will get to Atlanta and we'll have it everywhere here too.
I hope so. Well, and Jamie, I was thinking with you and me, we drink at a lot of local places, a lot of non-chain places. Now, if we were to go to, say, BJ Brewhouse, we may have a different experience.
That may be true. I've only been there once, and I found the people to be very nice. The beer it wasn't terrible. It wasn't great.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's nowhere near as good as as I can get at places closer to me.
Yeah, I'd rather go to the local places, you know, the non-chain places where,
Yeah.
you know, you're likely to meet the owner, not the manager, but the owner. I like that much better.
And I also feel like when they hire people who actually know about beer and food, and not necessarily just some kid who needs a restaurant job and is just barely old enough to serve alcohol. Not that there's any problem with that, but if you're serious about wanting a decent beverage, going to a place like that, you know, having someone who's 19 years old and is able to serve beer but not drink it is not going to give you the same kind of recommendation as someone who, you know, seeks out a serious bar or you know, watering hole that is known for its established draft lists.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Lola, have you ever been to Pele's in town?
Yes, I love that place. I've only been a few times.
Every time I go, I sit at the bar, and I try to go when, I mean, every bartender's awesome there, but it's what Kristen was talking about. They have 75 different beers available. They've got at least 20 different kinds of wine. They're all, most of them are amazing, and if I go, most of the time they're like, oh, Jamie, hey, try this, or try this, it's new, and I always get a great recommendation, and these guys know. They're like, oh, like they'll do beer pairings with my food that are flawless. And that's exactly what you were talking about, Kristen. There is a difference between hiring somebody to fill a spot and hiring somebody to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And plus, I think it also makes a difference. The servers know the owners. I think there's a difference. If you're working for an actual owner and you see the person every day, you get to know them, you're just going to be more attached to the job. I mean, I know I've worked a lot of different places, and I'm a little more likely to care personally about the job if I know the owner. So, you know, it makes sense that the people in the local places are just, you know, better, you know, just it's better experience for the customer.
Have you, I'm trying to think, like, I know we've talked about being proactive and not having problems at the places we go regularly, but have you found any sort of gender bias in beer drinking at larger establishments versus smaller? You know, like the chains versus the local beer bars?
My recent experience has been when I go to them, because I went to BJ's just within the last month, and it was that they really cared very little. They were like, well, this is our most popular beer. How about you try that? And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Same thing. I went once, and I mean, it was in the afternoon. We sat outside. We were the only people outside, so we got pretty good service because the server didn't have really many other people to wait on. So I didn't have a problem with that. The beer was fine and everything, but I could tell the server didn't know anything about the beer, and I didn't even bother to ask. I just looked and ordered an amber ale. Yeah. So it wasn't bad service, but it just wasn't the kind of personalized service I would like.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's why we prefer to go to the local places as opposed to the chain places.
What about you, Kristen?
I'm trying to think, like, the last time I went into a chain establishment. There's just so many good places to eat and drink walking distance from my house that, you know, things open and go out of business before I have a chance to get to them. There's that many. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely true that you get better I mean, there's a better selection and better focus on craft, whether it's food or drink, in the smaller establishments, and I think that's why they're not chains, is because they want to stay focused on that. So I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with gender. It's just that it happens to be the level of experience and the sort of goals of, as you were saying, I think, Lola, that owners are really attached to it and really present and really driving what is happening in their establishment.
And like you said, Kristen, that's not necessarily a gender thing, because I would imagine a male would have the same kind of issue. So that's really just the knowledge of beer from the employees.
Yeah, they're probably having been a waitress in a beer bar, I would keep a handful of beers. We had like 200 on the menu, and you don't know all 200. You know a few of general style. So if someone says, I normally drink a Miller Lite, what can you give me? It's like, oh, well, you want to drink a, whatever we have on tap that's, light and crisp and Pilsner. And if they say they like a Hoegaarden, you order something else. And so, as someone in a chain establishment that, if they're only going to have their 6 or 7 beers, you only have to know those 6 or 7 and know how to compare them to some other well-known beers, and it's easy. But someone who has a depth of knowledge and works at a beer bar would be able to tell you that this sour beer is going to be different than that sour beer, is going to be different than that Goza, it's different than something, and you wind up having these great conversations with other beer snobs about the finer points of, whether this beer is too tart or too sweet, and debating the merits of one versus the other. And I found that to be just absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I would work in a chain restaurant if I was looking for that level of interaction.
No, they wouldn't let you, because you would be encouraged not to spend that much time at a table. That's another thing. Chain restaurants, they want to flip those tables.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that,
Jamie,
that part... Pardon me?
Oh, I feel like you were starting to say something.
Well, I would say it depends on the chain restaurant. I worked at one 1,000 years ago when I was very young, where they encouraged you to have those conversations. But at the same time, I don't eat at chain restaurants, so what does that tell you? But every place I do go, I have people that I go to see that work there, people that I trust who have wonderful taste in beer and wine and food that I can have an actual conversation with. And at Zeta Brewery, Lola, when we were there, Chris the brewer was incredible, and he answered all of our questions, and he really explained like the large fermentation process, which, knowing far more about the home brewing process than like real mass beer making, well, in a sense, like microbrewery and a restaurant beer making, it was fascinating. And he knew so much, and he was able to talk about, and then I add fresh thyme from here and orange blossom honey from here, and you're just like, what? And then we go to the bar, and the bartender, whose name is Jimmy, actually... Johnny. Was it Johnny? Oh, it was. You're right.
It was Johnny.
It was Johnny. Mm-hmm. He quit his job as director of liquor sales at the stadium.
Yeah, that's a big job.
It's a big job.
With big money too, probably.
I'm not going to speculate, but he quit to work full time at Zeta Brewery, and he knew everything about the food and beer. He was so great to talk to, and he was just really enthusiastic about where he was. And you're just, two employees with that kind of ownership it's not going to happen in a major corporation, because the employees don't have that kind of ownership. So it's pretty great.
They don't have that much of a stake in it.
Yeah.
Because Johnny said he'd been there pretty much since the beginning.
Yep. Yeah, he came in like 2 months after it opened.
Yeah, so even if he didn't have a financial stake, he had an emotional stake, you could tell.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're a little bit past the 30-minute mark. We'll wrap this up. I think this is a topic that we can revisit again.
Yeah.
This would be a fun, continuous topic. Really, just gender politics and beer would be really fun to discuss.
It would be, because, I'd like to do a show one time on how our attitude informs the situation, because what I realized recently is I'm a very introverted person. I've known that. But it never occurred to me until recently that that probably has to do with a lot of my experiences. Because when I go into a bar, I have my head down. I don't know anyone. I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't know where I'm supposed to sit. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so I sit at the bar and I look down at my Kindle. And then I get kind of upset because I'm like, well, no one talks to me. And I don't have that kind of relationship like other people do where, you know, they get free samples and the bartender talks to them about what good beers they have. And I don't have that kind of natural ease with them. And it just occurred to me when we were out, Jamie, that, well, that's kind of my fault. So that's something we could talk about sometime. It's like how do our interactions um, how does that what am I trying to say? Oh, I've lost it. I'm past the 30-minute mark. My brain shut down. You know what I'm trying to say. How do we feed into that with our own attitudes?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's a good thing to think about. All right, so we'll do that another time. So we're going to sign off. You want to do a cheer?
Cheers!
All right. Thank you from Craft Beer Nation.